Hello guys, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Myself Mostofa Hassan Khondakar. Okay, ongoing pursuing my PhD degree. I'm a PhD scholar as well as I done my masters in biotechnology. Today I'm going to discuss you about the carbohydrates, which is a biomolecule. On my last lecture, I discussed or I give just a brief introduction about biomolecules, that what is biomolecules, okay, and what are the types, various types of biomolecules, okay, and on that type, carbohydrate is one of the type or class of biomolecules that we eat or other animals required for their growth, development, metabolism, protection and all. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so before going that, you guys must see my previous video on the biomolecules, then you guys will know some like just a basic introduction about what is biomolecule and all. Okay, so again I will just explain a few words about biomolecules. So biomolecules are basically the molecules or the compounds that are required for proper metabolism, proper growth, proper development and proper functioning of a normal human body or any other organisms. Without those animals, life is not possible. Okay, so today we will going to discuss about carbohydrates. Okay, so what is carbohydrate basically? So carbohydrates are the carbohydrates. Say for example, first I'm giving you an example that what is carbohydrate. If someone asks you that what is carbohydrate, you can say glucose is a carbohydrate. Okay, here is a glucose. Glucose is one of the carbohydrate. Okay, fructose is one of the carbohydrate. These are the examples of carbohydrate. Starch is one of the carbohydrate. Glycogen is one of the carbohydrate. These are the examples of carbohydrates. Okay, so these are the examples of carbohydrates. Now what is actually a carbohydrate is? So carbohydrates are generally the polyhydroxyaldehydes. These are the polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones or the compounds that can be hydrolyzed to them. Okay, this is the basic definition of carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are the polyhydroxyaldehydes, ketones or the compounds that can hydrolyze to them. Okay, that means you see this diagram. So this is a typical glucose diagram. Okay, so this is a typical glucose open chain structure. Okay, so here you see this glucose, it is a carbohydrate, right? And this glucose is basically made up of three things. One is your carbon, one is your hydrogen and one is your oxygen. So that means in carbohydrate, in a general sense, carbohydrates has three components: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, and these are called as hydrates of carbon. Why it is called as hydrates of carbon? Because you see these carbons are associated with OH and H, hydroxyl and this hydrogen ion. Okay, that means these carbons are surrounded by OH and H ion. That's why they are called as hydrates of carbon. That means the carbons are generally surrounded by water molecule. That means if you see a water molecule, this water molecule has two types of ion, H plus and OH minus. So these hydrogen and these the carbohydrates have generally mainly three components: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. And apart from these three, there are other compounds, other molecules are also present in a carbohydrates. Say for example glycoprotein. Glycoprotein is also an example of carbohydrates. So in that glycoprotein you may find a nitrogen group, you may find a ammonia group. Okay, that's why but in general cases, say for example glucose, fructose, okay, sucrose, lactose, in this class of carbohydrates, in these examples of carbohydrates, you will find basically these three things are present: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, and now so this is the basic definition about the carbohydrates, is that carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes. These are the polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones, and they are made up of basically three things: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, and as present in your water molecule, and they are called as hydrates of carbon. And these are the and carbohydrates, and your carbohydrate is the most abundant biomolecule on the earth. That means we have so much plants, right? We have like so many plants are there in nature. So the plant cell wall is made up of cellulose, right? So the number of carbohydrates is abundant in nature. That means we will find so many carbohydrates in nature. It is the most abundant biomolecule that is present in earth. Okay, and in general this carbohydrates has a formula CnH2ON. Okay, this carbohydrates has a formula called this CnH2ON. Okay, these carbohydrates are this is the general formula for a typical monosaccharide general formulas. That means the N is any number. It may be 1, 2, 3, 4, any integral number. Suppose the N is, say, suppose the N is 6. Suppose the N is your 6. Okay, so if the N is 6, then what will be the carbon number? Carbon will be 6. Here you put 6. Okay, then we have the bracket and there is 6. Okay, C6H2O and the 6. So if you sum up that, then you will find out C6H2 into 6 is 12 and oxygen is 6. So this is the, in this way you can count the number of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, okay, that is C6H12O6. This is the typical chemical formula of glucose. Okay, this is a typical chemical formula of glucose. Okay, now you see, okay, so now you see again, apart from the this carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, it will present in most of the carbohydrates. You will see in carbohydrates there are two functional group is present. Okay, two main functional group is present. One is your aldehyde group and one is your keto group. Okay, so this is the typical structure of glucose and this is the typical structure of fructose. You see in these two sugars you will find out there is two functional group, aldehyde group and a keto group. Okay, these are the two functional group, and based in these two functional group, the carbohydrates, there are two types of your monosaccharides or carbohydrates. One is your aldose sugar, okay, and another one is your ketose sugar, okay, aldose sugar and your ketose sugar, based on the functional group is present. Okay, understand? So three things should be noted, that in carbohydrates the carbon skeleton are surrounded by hydroxyl this OH and H ions. Okay, and it has two functional group, either aldehyde group or keto group, and based on the aldehyde and keto group there are two types of your sugars. One is your aldose sugar and one is your ketose sugar. Okay, now what are your functions of carbohydrate? What are the functions of carbohydrates? Okay, So what are the functions of carbohydrates? What are the role or what are the biological significance of carbohydrates? So you see, the most important thing in a carbohydrates or the most important need for carbohydrate is the energy. These are the dietary source of energy for most of the biological organisms. This is the number one function or number one biological significance is it can be used as a energy source. This is one. Okay, say for example rice. Okay, we eat rice to get energy, right? And this rice contains starch. This rice contains starch, okay, and this starch molecule gives us energy. Okay, understand? So this is one function of carbohydrate. The carbohydrate will give us the energy. Okay, next function of carbohydrates, by these carbohydrates will provide us energy, fine, as well as it will give us or the carbohydrates will help us to store energy. Okay, one is your supply of energy. Okay, while we break down the rice, while we digest the starch, it will supply energy to our cells, then we can move, then I can talk, right? So along with that, some carbohydrates help us to store the energy. Okay, and that's and these are basically in humans we store we store the energy in our body in the form of glycogen. Okay, and this glycogen is present in liver. This glycogen is present in liver hepatocytes. Okay, this glycogen is present in your liver hepatocytes. This glycogen is present in your liver hepatocytes. That means the hepatocyte means liver cells. Okay, or in general this glycogen is stored in your liver. That means suppose you are eating rice. Okay, suppose you are eating rice or any carbohydrates. Okay, your body will take only that much carbohydrates which is necessary, which is important for your regular function, and those extra glucose which are building up in your blood or in your body, it will go to your liver and form the glycogen. Okay, and store in your liver. Okay, the extra glucose or extra carbohydrates which are built up in your blood or in your body fluid, that glucose will go to your liver and form the glycogen and store the energy in the form of glycogen in your liver. Okay, that is another function of carbohydrate, that is the storage form of energy. The carbohydrates supply energy as well as the carbohydrates can store energy. Okay, the carbohydrates can store energy, carbohydrates will also supply energy. Okay, again there is a condition, and what is it? So if you eat excess glucose, okay, or excess sugar in your diet, then what will happen? Your liver will enlarge. Okay, or if you have a metabolic problem related to glycogen, then your liver is again enlarged. Okay, and that condition is called as hepatomegaly, and this may came in your competitive exam, hepatomegaly. Okay, hepatomegaly means enlargement of your liver. Okay, so this enlargement of liver happens when you eat excess sugar or when you have a metabolic disorder related to glycogen. Okay, or there are some other conditions. There are various types of diseases associated with glycogen metabolism, and these are called as GSD. These are called as your GSD, glycogen storage disease. Glycogen storage disease. Okay, these are called as glycogen storage disease. Okay, related to your glycogen metabolism, or if your body is abnormally store glycogen, or if there is metabolic error in your body, then it will lead to glycogen storage disease. Understand? So again, what is the next function of carbohydrates? Next function of carbohydrates are these carbohydrates help us in help in most of the animals for protection. That means it have a protective function also. This carbohydrates has a protective function, or it is a protective element, a structural element. Say for example your chitin, okay, or N-acetyl glucosamine, NAG, or your cellulose. These are present in most of the animal cell wall for their protection. This chitin is present in insect, okay, insect shell and fungi also cell wall, and this cellulose is present in plant, okay, and this NAG or N-acetyl glucosamine is present in peptidoglycan or your bacteria, okay, for their protection, okay. That means this thing, there is a chitin, N-acetyl glucosamine, okay, and your cellulose, this will help for the organism's protection. Now how it will protect the element, I mean how it will protect the plant or your organism, because these are insoluble carbohydrates. Remember, these are insoluble carbohydrates. Generally they do not solubilize in water, so that's why due to this nature, as well as their structure is so tightly packed one to another, because the elements will be stacked in one another, that's why they give the protection, okay. They are insoluble in nature, as well as their structure are arranged in such a ways that they are highly packed, okay, and give the protection from the outside environment, okay, from drought, from rain, from any other microorganisms, infectious microorganisms. This will help for their protection, okay. This is another function of carbohydrates. One function is your energy, one function is your storage of energy, and another function is your protection, okay, and another function is your protection, okay. In our like cells, okay, suppose there is two cells, okay, cell A and cell B. For their adhesion between the two cells, as well as for their communication, we require carbohydrate polymers, okay, we require some carbohydrates, okay, as well as in our joints, okay, so in our joints we also have some lubricants, okay, and these lubricants is also a carbohydrates. I will show you what are the I mean your lubricants are there in our joints, okay. Let me show you that one. Okay, you see this chondroitin sulfate is there, chondroitin sulfate. This chondroitin sulfate is a class of carbohydrates, and it contributes the tensile strength of cartilage, tendons, ligaments and the wall of aorta. That means this chondroitin sulfate will give strength to the cartilage, tendons, ligaments and all, okay. Then we have darmatin sulfate. This darmatin sulfate contributes the skin pliability, okay, so skin's liability also there, and this darmatin sulfate is also present in the blood vessels and heart, okay. Then heparin is also one of that. So heparin will add so it will this heparin will also prevent the blood clotting. It will prevent the blood clotting, this heparin, okay. So this heparin will also help in preventing the blood clotting. If your blood clot in some place, then what will happen? It will stuck, right? Then your heart function will be stopped. So that's why there is a role of heparin. It will prevent the blood clotting. And we use purified heparin, and we use this purified heparin in our blood samples, okay, in case of clinical analysis to to prevent the clotting. Okay, that means when we transfuse blood to your body, we use some purified heparin, that the clotting is not, if so it makes sure the condition is that the clotting will not be there, blood clotting will not be there. That's why we use the purified heparin. Okay, so these are the few like functions of carbohydrates. First function is these carbohydrates will provide energy, the carbohydrates will store energy, carbohydrates will give protection. Okay, and again this our DNA and RNA, right? In our DNA and RNA, carbohydrate is present. Which one? Ribose sugar. Ribose sugar. So this is another function of carbohydrate, that is the ribose sugar. Okay, so that means for the DNA and RNA structure, this ribose sugar is important. Okay, this ribose sugar is present in DNA as deoxyribose sugar, and it is also present in RNA as a ribose sugar. Okay, now what is deoxy and ribose, I will discuss this in my next class. Okay, when we start the nucleic acid part. Okay, next you see, next is our classification of carbohydrates. Okay, we understand what is carbohydrates, we understand what is the definition of carbohydrates, how many chemicals are there in carbohydrates, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. There are two functional group, aldehyde and ketone group. Okay, and the functions of carbohydrates. Next, coming to the next point, that is the classification of major classification of carbohydrates. Okay, generally three classes of carbohydrates are there. Okay, there are generally three classes of carbohydrates. One is your monosaccharide, okay, which has only one single unit of sugar. One sugar unit is there, that means it has only one sugar unit. Okay, then we have oligosaccharide, when there is 2 to 10 sugar unit is present. Okay, and the last class is your polysaccharide, when there is more than 10 sugar units are present. Okay, monosaccharide when there is one single sugar unit is present, polysaccharide when more than 10 or more than thousands, more than hundreds of sugar units are there, then it will comes under this polysaccharide. There are three major classes of carbohydrates: mono, oligo and polysaccharides. Okay, now coming to the monosaccharide, which is the first class. Okay, monosaccharide. Okay, this monosaccharide has one sugar unit. That means, suppose this is one sugar, let me show you. Suppose this is your one sugar unit. Okay, and this one is a structure of your typical okay, so this is a typical glucose structure. You see, this glucose has this single sugar unit is present, so it is a monosaccharide. Okay, so and this one is a closed structure. Okay, there are two types of like arrangements are there. One is your open chain arrangement, okay, which is called as Fischer's projection, and one is your closed chain arrangement, which is called as your Haworth projection. Okay, there are two types of structures there. This one is called as the open chain or Fischer's projection, and this one is called as your Haworth or closed or cyclic structure. Okay, so in our monosaccharides we have only single sugar unit. Okay, and what are the examples of monosaccharides? Glucose, fructose. Okay, your ribose, glucose, fructose, ribulose, xylulose, galactose, mannose. Okay, these are the examples of your monosaccharides. Okay, monosaccharide means single sugar unit. Okay, again थोड़ी देर पहले मैंने ये भी बोला था कि based on the functional group there are two monosaccharides are there. One is your aldose sugar and one is your ketose sugar. Okay, so these are the two classes of your monosaccharide. One is a ketose sugar based on the ketone as a functional group, and one is your aldose sugar based on aldose as a functional group. Okay, you can see my notes or you can go through my notes, then your doubts will again clear. Okay, all informations are there. ठीक है, सब यहाँ पे broadly define कर दिया है. ठीक है. Okay, and again there is one more classification of monosaccharide. One more classification of monosaccharide is that based on the number of carbon, based on the number of carbons present, there are different types of monosaccharides. If the carbon number is 3, then we can say it is a triose sugar. Okay, if the carbon number is 4, then it is a tetrose sugar. If the carbon number is 5, then it is a pentose sugar, and if the carbon number is 6, then it is a hexose sugar. Okay, so based on the number of carbon present in a monosaccharide, there are different types of sugar molecules, different classes of monosaccharides: triose sugar, tetrose sugar, pentose sugar, and hexose sugar. And these are the examples of triose, pentose, and hexose and heptose sugars. You can go through it. Okay. Now let's see some stereochemistry of monosaccharides. Some stereochemistry of monosaccharides. Okay, so you see these two forms. Okay, one is your D form and one is your L form. Okay, one is your D form and one is your L form. These are called as your these are called as the D and L form. These are the two forms, or these are the two isomers, and these are called as enantiomer. Okay, these are called as enantiomers of the sugars. Okay, this is one stereochemistry or one property of monosaccharide. That means the monosaccharides can show two form of structures. One is your D form structure and one is your L form structure. Now what is D and what is L? Okay, you see this example of monosaccharide. This is the 3 carbon compound sugar, so it is a triose sugar. Okay, an example is glyceraldehyde. Okay, so and this carbon is called as the asymmetrical chiral carbon. Okay, this is the chiral carbon and this is called as the asymmetrical chiral carbon. Why it is called asymmetrical chiral carbon? Because every sides have different group. There is a CHO, there is OH, there is CH2OH, there is hydrogen. That's why this carbon is asymmetrical chiral carbon atom. So if we place this asymmetrical chiral carbon atom in a mirror, then it will show two types of isomers. Okay, and based on that mirror isomers, there are two types of arrangements are there. One is a D isomer and one is your L isomer. Okay. And the easiest way to remember this, when the OH group, you see, when the OH group is present in right side, when the OH group is present in right side of the asymmetrical chiral carbon atom, then it is called as D isomers, and when the OH group is present in the left side, then it is called as the L stereoisomer. Okay, D and L. Okay. Now I am showing one example. Say for example, I am drawing a glucose structure. Okay. Okay, so this is two arrangement of or two stereo isomer of glucose. One is your D isomer and one is your L isomer. Okay, L isomer. Now why it is called D isomer? How can you remember or how can you say it is a D isomer? Just see the last chiral asymmetrical chiral carbon atom. Just see this last asymmetrical chiral carbon atom. If the OH group of the last asymmetrical chiral carbon atom is present in right side, then it is a D isomer, and if the OH group is present in the left side, then it is a L isomer. Okay, so based on this, there are two types of stereoisomers are there. Okay, based on this, there are two types of stereoisomers are there. Okay, next class I will discuss you about the reducing sugar and non-reducing sugar. Okay, and this is the first part of carbohydrate unit, that is the carbohydrate your introduction of carbohydrate, definition of carbohydrates, function of carbohydrates, basic classification of carbohydrates, and a small portion of monosaccharides. Okay, what is monosaccharide, what are some properties of monosaccharides, and I discuss only the isomeric properties of monosaccharide, that is the D and L isomer. Okay, and next class I will going to discuss you about the reducing nature of monosaccharides. Okay, what is a reducing sugar, why a sugar is said to be as a reducing sugar. Okay, then I will also discuss about the epimeric forms are also there. Okay, so